Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is part 3 of part 2 of every single Warhammer 40k faction explained. Last time I went over some more of the Dark Elf stuff and the Tyranids. All of that is very creepy and very disturbing. It's disturbing. It's messed up because especially in part 1, I was like all on board for the chaos nonsense. I was like, let's go. I'm a part of this chaos cult. Let's have it be. Let's do it. And then like all the Eldar stuff, I'm like, maybe I'm part of the human part of the chaos cult, not the Eldar part, because they seem real messed up. Because then he kept bringing up like Senator Cohen, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, Bioshock was messed up. So anyway, this video is not necessarily about the Eldar. We're going to start with orcs. Before we get going, just make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it, and also it helps us continue to cater content to you. So thank you very much for joining me once again, and I shall now get started with the orcs. Let's go.
That means I'm super fast!
Orcs. Fucking love orcs. So
They seem fun.
The green monsters, the green tide, the green skins. These orcs, they are in fact a race in 40k. The orcs are as exactly what you expect them. They have archaic weapons, they're big boys, they have axes, and they have got big old teeth, and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them. The only reason they haven't taken over the entire galaxy is they can't stop murdering each other. Orcs are so cool. Orcs don't have philosophy. Orcs don't have existential crisis. What matters is who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy because he the biggest orc. He big orc. Big orc knows
Big
best.
boy.
You win through the power of imagination. Of all the races I have battled throughout the galaxy, the orc is the hardest to comprehend. They wage war with machines that should not work, care little for strategic gains, and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy. How does one battle an enemy that defies all logic? As an orc, you're enjoying life. You're enjoying the life you're given. Your whole life and job and purpose is to get up and beat each other to death because you can. The biggest orc is the man who understands everything. He is the boss. And orcs have this really weird, like, big, dumb, stereotype British accent, which is just hilarious to me. Those are orcs. You fight. You like to fight.
It's a little rocket pack.
To fight. You wage war because you want to wage war. You got your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss, because if you don't listen to the boss will squish you and make you an example for the other orcs.
I like that he's like doing a Batman like a gang hood, like a Batman goon voice. You listen to the boss. Just like, because if you don't listen to the boss, he'll squish you. It's like, it's kind of like this half Chicago, half New York, like mix. And he was like, but they are Cockney though.
And then you can't fight because orc dead. And orc dead can't fight because orc dead. Orcs, they scrap together machines out of parts that don't make any sense, and because they believe, they have the mental imagination that that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with your fellow orcs, and the biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you is like, oh, Zog, we're out of gas. And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on, and it works again. Does it have gas? Probably not, but it works.
It's like how Crowley and Aziraphale do, or how Crowley mostly does miracles in Good Omens. He just believes in it hard enough, and, you know, he can drive through an inferno of like 1,000 degrees, and his car is fine. It's totally fine. It's not going to burn up. It will take him across the country because he believes it hard. I love that. I like that trope of if you believe it hard enough, it'll work this time.
The power of imagination. They paint things red because it makes them think they goes faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color. You want to know why? You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't fucking think so. Orcs are also like ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari time frame. But back then they were called Krorks, and they were much larger and scarier and far more intelligent. Now they're just orcs, and they're big, dumb, and they smack things, but they're pretty spooky. They're not very well armored, but they hit really hard, and it's called the Green Tide because there are so many orcs. There are about as many orcs as there are Tyranids, maybe more. Who knows? But they keep on, murdering each other, so it's not too bad.
Okay.
Orcs are entirely comic relief. Their stuff is slapped together. That makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works, because they imagine that it works. Orcs care only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc. And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then when they go and they issue a WH is just war in orc, they murder everybody and everything in this giant tide of green orcs who are just excited to be hitting something. They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau or anyone in between. They're just so they get to beat shit up. That's orcs.
That sounds...
And on the tabletop, they are a total coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met a salty orc player. I have never met someone who plays orcs and is ever just a bad guy or that guy. Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when you play them, you are completely submitting yourself to RNG. So here's the thing. Guardsmen, Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines, pretty good. They hit on a 3 or higher because they're well trained. Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2s because they're just super well trained. Orcs, they hit on a 5 or higher. But if they roll a 6, they get to make another shot with anything, from the dinkiest pistol to the biggest rocket launcher. It doesn't matter. Half of their stuff will blow up on a whim. One of their medics, if you roll a 1 to heal someone, you fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc. They're so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well, you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are going to crush people. And if you don't, you lose.
Oh well, I'm glad he finally explained something about how the actual gameplay mechanics work. I have been wondering for a million hours now, actually 2. But thank you for finally telling me how some of this gameplay works. I appreciate it.
And that's what you get when you play orcs. That's what happens when you play orcs.
I love it.
Coin flip. Which is why you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs, because things won't go your way. It's just the roll of the dice. You're playing a dice game. But if you're going to have fun, and you want to be stupid, and you want to be silly, you're going to play some damn orcs. But on the opposite side of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons.
Okay, before he does that, I just wanted to say really quick, because I have some experience with a couple of orc type things, wherein in Shadow of Mordor and stuff, you get to do you have all the orcs that you can kind of control, and the Nemesis engine, all that fun stuff. I was playing that with my friend, and we ran into an orc called Ulthrak Giggles, and we could never, throughout our gameplay of both War and Mordor, we could not find another orc called Giggles, so we just continued. We called him Mr. Giggles. He was my very favorite. I was every single time we found Mr. Giggles, it was just the highlight of the night. We're so excited to be able to play, to have Orthorex Giggles and to help him out. And we kept building him up because it's we want him to do well. He's our babies, Mr. Giggles. And I could never find another Giggles. We tried. We did want to find another Giggles, but we couldn't find one. So if you guys played either of those games and you found a Mr. Giggles, let me know, because he was my very favorite. Anyway, we're going to go on to the Necrons now.
The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grimdark again. They have a much more fleshed out lore than before. Back in the day, they were just undead Egyptian space terminators, and they still look that way, but now they actually have a story. So way back in the day, you had the Necron tier. Kind of see a
Anybody else getting Stargate vibes from just me? Okay.
theme here: Eldari, Eldar, Krork, Orc, Necron, Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally kind of shitty people. Not because they were personally shitty, but because their lives were awful. They were ill-fated to a horrible existence of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really sucked. Being a Necrontyr was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality. They were extremely reliant on the hope that they would eventually find the key to living forever and to stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy. And they found this group. They're called the Old Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo or the Xel'Naga in StarCraft, right? These Old Ones were these strong, pretty much omnipotent beings, and they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So Necrons went to them and said, please, show us your ways. And the Old Ones said, piss off. Not really, they were a lot more humble about it, but they did not want to share their secret of immortality with the Necrons. The Necrons, of course, took this very well and waged war with them, kind of under this united banner. The Necron different dynasties didn't really like each other, but under this one man, the Silent King, he thought the best way to unite his race was to do this giant war with the Old Ones out of spite for them keeping the secret of immortality to them.
How human of him.
This was known as the War in Heaven, and this is actually like a multi-stage war.
Oh, wow.
Because during this war in heaven, they discovered the Star Gods, a whole new race of people known as the Catan, or the Catan. These Star Gods were also very much like Old Ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key to immortality. And so the Necrons went to them and said, hey, can you help us fight off the Old Ones? Can you help us kill these Old Ones, you, the Catan? And the Catan said yes. And in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately seek. So the Silent King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them. But this, of course, had
Monkey's
been a
paw.
horrendous trap. And the Necrons were dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with nothing but a metal hollow shell, as their souls were ripped from their body and fed to the Catan. And the Catan fattened up. They got chonk on the souls of the Necrons. As this was their plan all along, they consumed the flesh and souls of the Necrontyr and turned them all into unwilling robotic slaves just to serve their will. And then, with their new-founded Necron army, they pointed their guns at the Old Ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these Old Ones. The Old Ones did their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari and the Orcs, to try to fight off the horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them. And the Old Ones were absolutely extinguished across the galaxy. Their entire race completely removed. Full-on 100% genocide. However, during all this, the Catan, so just infatuated with their victory, started fighting each other for fun, for sport, and for small differences. Doesn't matter. The Catan, with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the Orcs actually started pushing on the Catan's borders a little bit, giving them a little bit of a run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to leap into action and start a full-scale revolt against their
How do you manage that?
masters. And this revolt was bloody, as the entire Necron army was surged off to destroy these star gods.
Okay.
They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war. And they took these Catan and they blasted them. Because as these star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards and entrap them in giant stasis vaults to now actually be slaves to the Necrons. And with the Necrons
Turnabout's fair play.
entirety of their old gods enslaved to them, they realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Krorks. And so what they did is they retreated into giant stasis tombs in order to preserve their energy and their strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy that was rightfully theirs. And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console, and now the Necrons are back, and they see all these primitive races on their lawns, and they think, get the fuck off of it. So the Necrons are super
Humans, stop messing with shit. Stop it. It's a bad plan every single time.
advanced, and they are here to reclaim the galaxy that they so rightfully believe is theirs. Now, on a tabletop, they're a lot like that. Tons of undead Egyptian skeleton robots that when they die, they just get right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill, tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan themselves as units to fight with. It's pretty cool. The Necrons are one of the three major events in 40k. The Horus Heresy, the Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events.
Cool.
And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well. Here's a good quote from a wonderful Dawn of War game. Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death.
He needs to, like, give this a lot more gravitas. Like, I want to hear, who do I like? Christopher Lee read this, you know? Or Ian McKellen would be good. I don't know. I want someone, like, gravitas and deep and, like, I don't know, Emperor Palpatine or something.
I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs, I was remade. Here, my brethren slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Kronos will be a tomb world once more. Necrons are also pretty smug. Trays in the Infinite especially, a little dickhead. But speaking of dickheads, last race, let's talk the Tau.
We made a fucking Wookiee.
All right, good. He mentioned them earlier.
The Tau Empire is not entirely understood. However, a long time ago, many thousands of years ago, in the 40k world that is, some Imperial navigation vessels were going around through different areas, and they saw a primitive race, blue people, smacking each other with sticks and stones. They thought, dumb Xenos race, who gives a shit, and they bailed. Then this giant warp storm occurred right in that major area, unable to be breached. Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later subsided, hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all just unite together under one flag of the Tau Empire.
Good job,
and now
Tau.
they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots and lasers and railguns and mechs, and they are here to ruin your day for the greater good.
Good for them.
That's generally the Tau Empire. They have this kind of feeling of this homogenous group. All species can go underneath the banner of the greater good. The greater good is their idea of the fundamental increase and help of all. In fact, they are most likely the most like the Covenant in Halo, where they have the overarching prophets, being the ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit, but then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all work together in this big group as this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy. The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences and equate him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. That is generally the Tau. And if you're kind of wondering like what their mainly big shtick is, well, they're all about big robots and mechs. They have laser rifles and
Works for me.
guns. They got giant mechs with tons of missile pods and heavy rail rifles and rail guns and burst cannons and ion accelerators and void shields and all this stuff. And that is generally what the Tau's all about. But you're probably thinking, Bricky, this doesn't sound that evil.
Yeah, you said everyone's evil.
This doesn't sound very grim, dark Warhammer. And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying, grimdark style like everybody else. They're much more younger, new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day, because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer didn't really like it that much. So, see, the Tau get a lot of hate, and a lot of that hate isn't necessarily unjustified. It's mainly from a tabletop perspective, but as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really fit in the 40k universe very well. They lack that super dark, dramatic, kind of high gothic level the Imperium has. They don't have the weird kind of like grungy stuff that Chaos or say the Orcs do. And the Necrons and the Eldar have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam. And while that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does definitely not fit too well. There's that. There's also the tabletop problem. In tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good at range combat. So they blast everyone from really, really far away, and they have a million rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for you to get into melee combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which is gun to gun.
Yeah,
and if you're doing
that's
gun
not
to
as
gun,
fun.
they're going to win every time, because they're the Tau, and the Tau are really damn good at shooting.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that
No,
makes
that's not as fun. Like, it doesn't feel as inclusive. Like, at least everything else that he's mentioned seems to be, you can see where the checks and balances kind of are. And then, like, you know, it's like you get, like, that one big knight guy who just, like, absolutely terrifying if he's on your table. But, like, still, like, you can still roll well enough, it sounds like, to beat them. But, like, that... And, like, you can, like, have more strategy, it sounds like, maybe, with some of these other creatures. This one doesn't sound like there's a lot of strategy. I feel like it would be great for, like a video game or a movie or something. Or not a video game, but, like, a movie or a TV show. Or it's like, these are your good guys, essentially. But playing with them and nobody else is playing like that, yeah, that doesn't sound as fun.
make the Tau generally rather hated, and a lot of different reasons for that, both from style and such. But this is actually one of the things I wanted to end this video with, is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes, of course I will, but it's all generally in good fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't want you to play a faction is an idiot, and you shouldn't be giving them the time of day.
Fair.
You pick what you think is cool and what you like. In Warhammer, especially now, factions get better and they get worse. They grow and then they fall. You should only be playing what you think is cool. You like the look, you like the models. If you're talking tabletop, that is what you should be going for every time, is what you think is badass, because things change all the time. But the universe of Warhammer has so much going for it. Every faction has something interesting, every character has a story, and there's a million stories to be told. The universe is vast and exciting, and while it is dark, depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm. And out of everything I've told you in these two videos, if anything you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much. Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and so much that can be done, you can find yourself having a pretty great time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it has been informative to you. If you'd like to see more of me, Bricky, you have twitch.tv/Bricky for my streams. You have my merchandise site, in which I was wearing all of my merch, but underneath this, because I had to wear this so it wasn't black or white for the green screen, which is a little unfortunate, but it's fine. If you'd like to see merch, it is in the description. Also, if you'd like to support me on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Bricky for more videos like this, then that would also be wonderful. So Twitch, merch, Patreon, anything if you want to support, that would be fantastic. I'd appreciate it. If not, I'm just stoked you got all the way to the end of the video, and that is enough for me. So I'm going to be having some more content like this out in the future. Thank you so much for sticking around this long and being with me through this pretty rough time. That's, I think, all I got. Also, before I go, let me leave you with my favorite Warhammer quote. "He who scoffs at the power of the lasgun has never ran through a field of 1,000 of them." Bye-bye.
Okay, because like he was saying earlier that though that Marine was his favorite, even though the last gun is the worst. But again, we talked about this before too. numbers can win at a lot of stuff. You've got the numbers for something. It doesn't matter how, if your like weapons or your gear is kind of crappy, because you know, numbers can be very effective in actually you know, helping you win at something. This has been quite a journey, so thank you very much for sticking with me. Just like Bricky said, our friend Bricky, I also appreciate it very, very much that you were able to stick with me for so long. This has been quite a bit of time coming, and thank you again for people who have you know, given me like hints and tips and chatted with me about it in the comments, giving me some extra information, giving me some other background stuff. I think that's really cool. Let me know what your favorite of the factions is. Like I said, of the Imperium, I think I'm still like on the Battle Nuns and the Assassins. I think that those are just cool. But I feel like I vibe a little bit more with the Chaos Humans the most. I think that just seems like fun. And of course, the Tau morally are probably the best. I mean, they're still like willing to wipe out huge swaths of people, but it also sounds like maybe they'd be willing to let you join them. Maybe? Explain. I would really appreciate the explain. Thank you again for all of your help. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, check out the other videos on our channel. If you can become a Patreon, that would be incredibly appreciated. You get some extra content, you get early videos, you can have your name come up on our little list and have everyone read your name, which is just sometimes a little thrill. I joined the Patreon team and I'm like, it still like makes me happy when I see my name go up. I'm like, hey look, just me. So thanks again for joining me on this rather intensive journey. And I will see you all next time. Enjoy your day and have, you know, for the Emperor and skulls for the Skull Throne.